안녕하세요. 아피입니다.
안녕하세요. 저는 사라입니다. So today we have two guests to ask about their experiences in Korea and to discuss their thoughts about cultural differences in Asia and Korea. So Afi, you would like
So, what would you like
can
to...
our two guests introduce themselves?
안녕하세요. 제 이름은 아피파입니다. I've been studying in Korea for about 4 years, and then next.
My name is Arif. 안녕하세요, 아리프입니다. I've been in Korea for 5 years, and I stayed at Seoul for those 5 years duration. Thank you. Hi.
Hi.
Afi,
So,
would you like to ask the first question?
it's about their greeting in Korea. How different are they between Malaysia and Korea?
So usually in Korea they just bow. In Malaysia we shake hands, right? Korea we bow and say 안녕하세요. Besides that, maybe like for friends, they like in Malaysia lah, maybe hugs or wave like that.
Oh, so next is
First-
about dining or how eating or eating ethic between Malaysia and Korea. What kind of food are usually is main dishes in Korea? And what's your favorite
Okay.
dishes?
Okay. Like for instance, in Korean food, most of the food are much more centered around the main dish itself, meaning there's a lot of seafoods and there's a lot of meat. And then they also have this thing we call side dishes, which is like in Malaysia it's more of like our belacan, our dubu, this kind of stuff. But for them they have their kimchi and they have their geran mari, and then they have this kind of like and every shops for instance have their own sets of dishes, side dishes, and people can actually come, and then when we order food we order our main dish and then we can get a refill for our banchan,
Or side dish.
for our side dish. And then our favorite food, and for me instantly, I mean, since we are Muslims and we cannot actually eat any kind of not really cannot lah, but then it depends on the people, 50-50, but we eat a lot of seafoods. And for me personally, I really like a dishes called ojingo bokem, which is basically, if translated into English directly, is supposed to be something called stir-fried octopus,
Spicy stir fry.
spicy stir-fried octopus with rice,
Oh,
which is like in Malaysia we have our sambal sotong, yeah,
Kind of that.
kind of that. And like for her, if I'm not mistaken, she really likes this kind of soupy dishes called sundubu jjigae, which is soft soft tofu stew, but then with no meat because we cannot eat meat. Yeah, and then those are usually ordered ojingo bokem and then sundubu jjigae whenever we go out.
so what the difference between their dining ethic if compared to especially Malay, and what dining ethic that should we take into our culture?
Okay, the difference between their eating etiquette is, for most cases, Malaysian food tend to eat everything with their hands. I mean, like we eat our nasi campur using our hands, and then for like the Chinese, they have their chopsticks, and then for Indians, they also eat using their hands. Since Korean people are mostly Korean, they tend to eat using chopsticks, and then and then they also have their rice. But then the main difference would be that during eating, they tend to be more like eat as many as you can, and then they actually prefer somebody who can eat something deliciously. Meaning whenever you guys are staying over in Korea, they will most of the imonim or most of the
Owner
of the restaurants, they really like if you guys eat a lot instead of eat a little bit.
Like for the side dishes, you have to like finish it because it is kind of rude if you didn't finish the side dish.
Since they actually give you for free,
Yeah.
if you guys don't finish the side dish, you guys might actually need to pay some. For instance, nepo.
Yes.
Yeah, if you don't finish the side dishes, they will actually weigh the side dish, and then you have to pay per 100 grams. Sorry. Yep.
Some of the restaurants.
Some of the restaurants, not all lah. Most cases no need, but then there are some places that do.
So you think that
Usually like in buffet.
Buffet, yeah, buffet actually. If you guys arrive over there, there's actually a lot of what we call that infinite refill kind of restaurants where they serve a kind of food. Like for instance, there's a tteokbokki refill places. We call this place actually Muhan Lipil Shitang, and then they have their
Skewer,
mutton stew, lamb stew, where you guys can eat as many as you want, but if you don't finish, you have to pay. And then these tteokbokki places, which you guys can refill as many as you want, but then if you don't finish, you have to pay. Yeah.
so do you think that that kind of rules should we apply it in Malaysia?
In that cases, like most of the places actually have, since they actually serve for unlimited amount, so it's actually very hard for them to actually obtain any kind of 什么鸡？突然pandang我。
refund.
Not refund. It's not really useful in terms of Malaysia, because in Malaysian cases we tend to eat a lot of different dishes at the same time. Meaning we eat our nasi campur, and then even if we eat our nasi lemak, it's not only nasi lemak. We have our ayam goreng, we have our telur mata. I mean, it's not a single dish. But for Korean, they tend to eat like a single dishes. Like if, for instance, if you guys are only eating the lamb stew, that place will only serve lamb stew. In Malaysia, if we talk while we eat, we got slapped. So that's why.
Different.
So next is about social interaction. How different are the social norms in Korea and Malaysia?
For social, like there's difference between their rank. Like for Sombe is senior, and B, they have to respect each other. Mostly like junior have to respect senior. So you have to use jondemal. Jondemal is like formal or polite instead of using not polite form. So for teacher, you have to use nopimal. You have to add seyo something. Nopimal is more polite. So they have this kind of rank in Korea. So you have to
take care.
Yeah.
Of the social norms. Meaning you have to be conscious or be mindful whenever you speak to someone elderly or someone which is at a higher rank than you. Yeah, and then another thing is, if I would like to add, the other social norm is Korean actually like to be silent. I mean, they like their surroundings to be silent, but they themselves don't want to be silent. Like for instance, at night, if since we are living like in a, call it, it's not a flat but more like a house complex. We have our first level and our second level, and then if Malaysian mostly will sit on the second level. If we make noise around at night, the house owner will actually scold us. But then if they make loud noises at night, we cannot say anything. So yeah, they don't want other people to be loud, but they themselves, it's okay for them to be loud, like that, those kind of things.
So next is about weddings. Have you attended one of the Korean's wedding?
Korean's wedding. We didn't actually manage to attend because different from Malaysia, Korean wedding tends to be much more smaller, and it's for like a close-knit group. It's actually very hard for us to get an invitation, and then in our cases actually, since Korean tend to get married around 35 to 45, around those ages. So like for us, even in our circles or in our friend circles, even we have Korean friends, they usually tend to be around 20 something. So chances of them are getting married are much low. But then if for you guys, if you meet your sonsaenim or your Korean teacher, and then some of them might in their age to get married, they might invite you guys. But then depends on your luck. Like in our instance, some of us actually get invited because of their sonsaenim,
their homeroom teacher.
Their homeroom teacher was actually getting married, and then they invited the whole class. Like in that instance, you guys can go actually.
Living there in Korea for a long time, you must have had wear their traditional clothes. So how is it wearing their traditional clothes, and what's the difference between ours?
Tradition clothes?
Hanbok.
Yeah, hanbok. Yeah.
Hanbok.
What je?
Hanbok. What is it like to wear hanbok? Hanbok is quite difficult to explain in sentences because in Malaysia we have our own traditional clothes, but our traditional clothes tend to be much more simpler. Meaning we have our baju kurung and we have our baju Melayu, for instance. But for hanbok itself, there's actually a several layer. There's your tangwi and hawi, which is your upper part and your bottom part, and then it's actually like two different clothes. And inside those clothes, we have our like a separate inner. Yeah, and it's actually quite burdensome for women since for male their that hanbok is actually much more lighter and much more thinner, but for women they tend to be much more thicker. And then during the winter they will actually add more layers to make sure that it's okay for them to survive throughout the winter.
Do you know any taboos in Korea?
Okay. Taboo in Korea.
Saja.
Kau tabu ni je. The main taboo would be like it's usually strict for us, not really for the foreigners. It's actually more for all of the people currently living in Korea. It's very important for you to actually use nopimal and then jondemal at the correct places. Meaning when we meet other people or we meet older people, we have to actually use the jondemal. I mean, if we don't use the jondemal or we don't use the nopimal, they might scold you. And then the other taboo, like previously I mentioned, you cannot be loud. That's all. And then another thing is this one is supposed to be inside the Korean subway. It's not a taboo but much more of a unwritten rule, if I would say. There inside the subway there's like we call that Noin Jari. Noin Jari.
Elderly.
It's for elderly people. It's like elderly seats. And then when we enter the subway, we cannot sit on the elderly seat, even if the seat is pure hitam. If the seat is empty. Even if the seat is empty, that seat is elderly seat, we cannot sit on that. And then we cannot make noise inside the subway. Oh, this is actually quite a big cases. During our language years, we all have to actually live in one big, what call it,
apartment.
Like a 5-floor apartment. And then most of the Malaysian students will actually live there. So during Ramadan, we will actually get together and then do our solat tarawih at the top floor. So when we have, and then top floor is usually an open floor, open space, so we can just do our prayers and stuff. But since in Malaysia, when we do our solat tarawih, Malaysian tend to be quite loud, and then because of that, we have the house owner and some of the other neighbors has actually called the police. And then because of that, I mean we've met with some police over there in our first year. Our language here. I mean, it happens every year actually, but then since it happens to a different kind of batch, so it's okay for us. I mean, every juniors will actually might get the taste of that.
So, how is the work culture in Korea compared to Malaysia?
I've been working in Arab restaurant handled by Korean. So their sajangmim CEO is Korean.
Restaurant owner.
The owner is Korean, but he can speak Arabian. But for his wife, she only can speak English. Korean. So like in Itaewon, they usually use foreigner because there are some foreigners like us. We know how to speak in Korean and then in English and then sometimes in Arabian because we are Muslim, right? So we know some kind of Arab language. So during working there, I found that Korean is like usually have pali. You have to work quickly. Customer is first, so everything like they do, they will focus on customer. So if like customer then like in Malaysia we don't usually complain. Like in Korea everything they will complain, and then if they got complaint then then the restaurant owner will be hard for them. For restaurant they protect their quality and then quantity. So mostly of them they use fresh ingredients. Like if there is left food, leftovers or left ingredients, they didn't use that. They have to buy new to confirm that their ingredients is fresh, and then for customer to be satisfied with them. For the work culture, work culture.
And then another thing about the work culture is like it is mandatory for the underlings or those under manager level.
Ingredients is fresh, and then for customer to be satisfied with them. For the work culture, work culture.
And then another thing about the work culture is like it is mandatory for the underlings or those under manager level. We are expected to actually leave the office after our boss leave the office. Like for instance, if and then it's mandatory for us to actually be doing our job at all times. And then they tend to be more like strict if they see you guys not doing their jobs. Like for instance, when I was in Korea, I actually had chance to be working as a night manager at a Myeongdong guest house. And then the owner tend to prefer non-Muslim to work at their guest house because for Muslims we have our prayer time, and then they actually don't prefer their workers to be doing other things, especially not during their rest time. Meaning, if it's on your rest time, then you can do whatever you want. But if it's working hour, you have to work.
So, what is the education like in Korea? May you compare it to Malaysia?
Until like university.
No, in university life, like how it is in
university
Korea?
life.
Yeah, education. We in Malaysia we sit for SPM at 18 lah.
17. 17.
18, but
okay.
but they will finish their Golden Hakyo, their high school at 19. So in 1 year in the high school they learn about university subject. Like in Malaysia we learn foundation after SPM, but they learn their foundation and everything before their SPM. We call that Suneng. Suneng exam. After their SPM, after their Suneng, so they will sit for the Hakyo Shihong. So before they enter their university, so they have to sit for that. Like in Korea, there are a lot of competition. The first is Suneng, and then second is the Hakyo Shihong. In the Hakyo, IPA entrance exam. In Korea, if you enter the grade A Sky is Korea and Yonsei University. So if you graduated from that, you will get offer for a job. So maybe you can get into a big company using that. But if you are in grade D university, you will not getting to the big company. So usually big company they used to take someone from good university. So they fight for like grade A university. Another than that, education. Like in Malaysia, in university we use absolute value, absolute grading for mark. If we get 90, we get A. Something like in Korea, they have this kind of Sangde Pyongga. Sangde Pyongga is like manipulative marks or grading. It is depend on lecturer. Actually, if the lecturer want to give you 90, then you will get A. But percentage, right?
Yeah.
There is percentage for A, like 10% only can get A. Another than that will get B, and then lastly maybe 20% will get C, and then 10% will get D or F. So that's the difference between nations.
And then another one is in Korean university, if we wanted to be excellent, the main thing is you need to do is only study. For Korean themselves, there's actually 2 ways for us to actually be useful. Not to actually be successful in our university lives. The first one is we just study. And another one is we collect certificates. We collect certificates, we collect license, these kind of things. And then in their cases, for them to actually receive the top marks or actually to get A, it's mandatory for them to it's not like mandatory, but then it's more of them being during the exam week, they will actually spend their whole week inside the library. Since the library during the exam week and like 2 weeks before the exam week, they will open 24 hours. In those 2 weeks, usually some of the students will actually bring their clothes and then they sleep at the library And then if we Malaysian try to copy, it's very hard since they actually bring their pillow with them, and then they study, they wake up, they study, they wake up, they study, and then they bring their toothbrush as well. So and then most of them get really smelly during those exam weeks. Yeah, because they don't actually go home. They just stay over there for like 2 to 3 weeks.
It is hard to book a
Yeah.
library seat for like during
Exam
exam week.
So next is about religion. I think there's some virus about the cult in Korea. Have you ever experienced it?
Cop?
Cult.
What is cop?
Cult.
Oh, cult. Oh, okay. In Korean, most of the citizens are usually divided into 3 types. The first one being atheists, which supposedly more youngsters, and then there's Christians, and then finally there are Buddhists. And usually Buddhists and these atheists don't really have any problem. But then for Christians, they tend to have a lot of these small churches. Mostly in Hongdae and in Seoul, there's actually a lot of these small churches where these churches will actually have their own pastor, and then they have their own we call that pendakwa. I don't remember the word, sorry. They have their own those pendakwa lah, basically. And then those pendakwa mostly consist of these imo or these makcik, these aunties, where they will actually set a booth at anywhere, actually depends where they want. And then at those booths, they usually like prepare these hand towels or these tissues, yogurt drinks, and then they will actually like to attract people to actually come to their churches.
Yeah.
I mean, they will be like, just come to our churches. Our father can play the guitar. And then actually some times when we were over there, actually these Muslim people, Shafiq and Pedro, they actually followed some of the aunties to their churches. And then basically they have this it's not really that bad or anything big. They just have these, at times they have these like culture festival, and then they invite like outsiders to come and join, and then they ask them to feast, they give them clothes, those kind of stuff. It's not really a bad thing, but then some of them tend to get really antics, or they tend to get really extremist in that sense. But then those cases are really like small cases. And even some of my Christian friends themselves, they say that most of the churches or the small churches that's actually been built in Korea, the wrong Christian, meaning it's the Christians which supposedly don't believe in Jesus. There's a lot of different stuff over there. Yep. So you guys have to be careful lah. I mean, some of them will actually come to your house and then like, would you like to talk about Jesus?
Yeah.
You guys will experience this. And then inside, when you guys walk alongside the road, some of the guys will be like, come, we have good foods, come, we give you drinks. I mean, like for drinks you can just drink, but then for food it's better if you guys just throw away lah. Like for us, we just throw away, we don't care. But then just people like, if they actually hand you guys some food or drinks, just take, and then when they are not in your side, just throw it away lah. Basically, just be good citizens lah. That's all.
So as a Muslim, how do you adapt your Muslim style?
For Muslim, they don't usually know about Islam because they are not open with religion. But for Christians, they usually approach Muslims to go to the church. Because they say to us like Allah and Jesus is kind of similar. So they force us to go to church because of that.
And then like for us, since in our cases, in Seoul there's actually a place called Itaewon, which supposedly like the huge part of foreigners, meaning most foreigners will actually decide to stay in Itaewon. And then Itaewon have their own like small Muslim culture, where they also have a shop which sells halal meat, and then halal chicken, and then this halal restaurants where you can eat. But then the main problem with Itaewon is the Muslims culture are also there, and then around those cultures actually other foreign or Americans where they tend to be more loud, and then there's a lot of clubs over there.
Yeah, transgender club.
Yeah, transgender club. I mean, when you guys go over there, then you guys will know lah. Like around the halal mart, besides there's transgender club. I mean, it's a mix. It's a pot over there. Yeah, I mean, when you guys go over there, you will know. I mean, like some of my my friends are actually, they didn't actually go to the club, but then when they just walk past, some of the guys lah, those transgender people which like come come take a look inside, something like that. I mean, there's a lot of prostitute as well over there in Itaewon, especially. Yeah, so it's better for you guys to just order your halal meat online, halal chicken online. It's better, it's much faster like that.
So I have read that some cases in Myeongdong, you know, the street food that popular with street food, that actually Korean doesn't know what the halal means.
Yes.
Actually,
They don't know what halal means.
Have you ever experienced any kind of this situation?
I mean, it's a really big case, and then it happens really. I mean, it currently is happening. Like for us, in our certain cases, since even if for you guys you guys arrive over there, you guys are expected to actually be able to speak Korean at a certain level. And then even if the sign says halal, you can just go like, do you guys put meat inside or something like that?
Because
Some of the guys actually use halal meat, but some of them don't actually use any halal meat, so they just put the signs over there.
So what is your opinion on both entertainment?
I think Korean entertainment is the main source for their countries here.
For their economic development, the three most biggest not distributor. The three main income of Korean are supposedly technologies, and then the second one entertainment, and then the third one is their tourism. And then their entertainment is actually really big.
Really big.
Yep. For them in entertainment cases, they look entertainment as part of business as well as part of an art form. So they believe that if they go for entertainment, they really need to perfect their entertainment. I mean, they have those kind of mindset where when you guys do something, you guys have to do it as best as you can. They have this saying in Korean where "최선을 다하겠습니다," which means I will do my best. So they will tend to actually do a lot of things. I mean, their entertainment is good.
Any of you are a K-pop or K-drama fan?
Not really a big fan, but just K-drama only. Maybe just I just love to watch, but don't really like search for their backgrounds or like
extremists, say something.
Extremists, not really extremists. But most of them in Korea, they are extremists, right?
Yeah, they tend to be much more over the top in most cases. I mean, some of them are, I mean, not most of them Most of them are just like us normal people. We listen to music, we watch the TV. But some of them, like even in Malaysia itself, we have this called Sesang fan or like extreme fan or something, where they tend to get more over the top and then be more extreme. I mean, some of them even stalk the artist's house and those kind of things. Sesang fan dulu. Sesang fan European trade.
So that's all for today. I think that Malaysian and Korea have their pros and cons, which is there's no perfect country. So Sarah, you have anything to say?
No, I just again thank you for our two guests sharing their experiences in Korea. I think that is all.
Thank you.
Right.
Kamsahamnida.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.